Welcome, everyone, to Alaska Quarterly Review's Reading and Conversation Series. I am Ronald Spatz, co-founder and editor-in-chief of Alaska Quarterly Review, and this event is being recorded and will be available on demand and without charge on the Alaska Quarterly Review YouTube channel. Before we begin, I'd like to make two important acknowledgments. Alaska Quarterly Review gratefully acknowledges the Anchorage Museum for hosting and providing technical support for this event, and the Center for the Narrative and Lyric Arts, Alaska Quarterly Review's 501c3 umbrella organization, which makes this event possible. I also want to make a land acknowledgement. Alaska Quarterly Review recognizes the indigenous land on which all Alaskans live. AQR is located in Anchorage, and Anchorage is Dena'ina homeland. Dena'ina is the language spoken by the traditional present and future caretakers of this land, and land acknowledgement opens a space with gratefulness and respect for the contributions and innovations and contemporary perspective of indigenous peoples and marks our collective movement toward decolonization and equity. Today, we are pleased to present an emerging poet and writer, Sarah Seybold. Sarah grew up in Terre Haute, Indiana, and earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in English and Gender Studies from the University of Indiana University, and a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from the University of Oregon. In addition to Alaska Quarterly Review, Sarah's poetry and prose have appeared in Chicago Quarterly Review, ZYZZYVA, The Dodge, Lit Magazine, Arts and Letters, North Dakota Quarterly, Great River Review, Old Mountain Review, and the Indianapolis Review. One of her poems received a nomination for a Pushcart Prize. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome Sarah Seybold.
Thank you so much, Ron. And thank you to Alaska Quarterly Review. I'm really grateful Ron accepted some of my poems and has given me this opportunity to share some of my work with you today. I'll begin with a poem that will appear in Alaska Quarterly Review. This poem is called Plot. After I left her ashes on the snow behind her church, I didn't know what to do with the white cardboard box or the emptied plastic bag. I used to imagine she'd be buried in Burnett, in the old cemetery at the T in the road, up the way from our trailer. All my childhood, I saw family graves planted in that sad hill. But Mom had no plot, no plans or money to have a hole dug in the ground beside her mother. My remorse as the plane rose above the February drab, the dirtied melting snow. I could never go back to that Indiana gas station outside the airport where I left the box on the grime-streaked lid of an overfilled trash can. Inside the plastic bag I shook, still lined with residue. My mom died several years ago at this point, and the poems I'm reading today were those that I worked on while I was grieving that loss. And my mom, she had a pretty difficult life in many ways. She struggled with depression and some different medical issues, and she worked full-time nearly her whole life, but was always poor. And I wanted to write about those things because I thought they were important, but it was very difficult for me to really write for several years while she was alive and for a while after, just because I felt so worried I would hurt my mom by what I wrote, and I did not want to hurt my mom at all. So Plot and some of the other poems I'm going to read were really part of the process of me giving myself permission to go ahead and write these things that I needed to say. Wait. When I flew my mom out to visit me in Oregon, She told me she wanted to be cremated. No one in our family had been cremated before, but she worried her casket would be too heavy. She couldn't stop herself from eating, she said, because everyone left her, and she never felt full. Her dad had died, my dad had gone, and me, I'd left her too. My mom never forgave me for moving so far away. The last 2 years of her life she spent in Indiana hospitals, struggling to breathe and speak. The vent, the trach, dialysis. All the years before that, she couldn't afford her medicines. Her organs failed beneath all that weight. She had no plans in writing, of course, and I fretted. My sister didn't want her to be burned. But in the end, none of that mattered. Mom was cremated not because she was fat, but because she was poor. I flew back home to leave her ashes in the snow-covered garden behind her church. I thought I'd feel lighter once I emptied the bag, but the February wind blew her back to me. Her ashes still cling to my boots. Peonies. The landscaper had planted the perfect peonies in my Pacific Northwest yard. The thin petals opened into elegant circles, a pink so dark they were almost red, but they weren't the kind I wanted. I wanted the peonies of my Midwest childhood, pale pink, round and lush, heavy blooms bloated with May rains, thick clusters loosening in midday sun. It's all my fault. I hadn't said what I meant. I didn't describe the flower, and my mother is dead. Even those peonies couldn't drink all this grief. They'd bloom for 1 week, then tumble over, too full to hold their own heads. Cold. I remember cold November after the summer drought, when rain came back and filled the country wells, but not ours, broke. In the dark we'd stumble from the trailer's warmth, my mom and sister and me, and shuffle into the Dodge Aries, our plastic bags stuffed with towels and soap, and ride the ice-crusted, curvy roads to the vacant house with running water, empty except for furniture Mom couldn't afford to move. That fall before new owners changed the locks, we took turns, one of us shuddering while washing greasy hair in the frigid, head-splitting water, the other two huddled under musty quilts, shivering on the dusty pull-out couch, beside the gray armchair where Mama used to sit, smoking and heartsick, the air still stale with her smoke. Tornado season. Freight train roar over the trailer roof. The light above the stove went out. Terrified, I huddled under covers, my little sister asleep beside me. Without seeing her or hearing her voice, I felt my mom's presence in the dark as she rifled through my messy dresser where I kept the small yellow flashlight. I wonder if she felt my presence as I tidied the tray beside the bed, rearranged the unread newspapers, hospice brochures, her notebook and pen. How scared she must have been. A single mom out in the country, alone in the trailer with her 2 girls, searching for a light in the storm. Broken window. My mother slept while winter wept through the jagged, sharp hole, dampening the stale wood paneling. Out of the burnt orange carpet beside the wall, grew small mushrooms overnight. Thin beige stems, umbrella-shaped hats. In the morning, I'd pluck the mushrooms and throw them in the trash. But they came back. They always came back. Bag. I keep thinking about the plastic bag I carried to the garden, tried to empty on the snow. The plastic crumpled, the ashes spilled, but a film remained clinging to the inside of that bag I put back in the white cardboard box and propped on the slanted lid of a gas station garbage can overfilled in a rush to the Indianapolis airport. I like to imagine that plastic bag I left getting to travel someplace tropical, that a wind blows the flimsy box to the oil-stained pavement where it thrashes between the trash can and scuzzy gas pump until the box knocks itself open, releasing the bag, and that wrinkled plastic clouded with the leftovers of my mom's ashes rises under heavy gray sky, tumbling across the ice-patched parking lot, swirling above snow swaths clutching cornstalk stubble in the adjacent harvested field. A frigid gust lifts the bag and funnels it to the bed of a pickup truck headed south for winter. The bag hunkers, hitches a ride in secret, snug between boxes and camping gear, all the long hours, Indiana to the Gulf, until it arrives at the beach, and a gale swoops the bag from the truck, guiding it above the bright white sand under clear blue sky, where it twirls in the warm breeze beneath swaying fronds of tall palm trees. In Florida, where my mom traveled alone to visit her dad until he died from a heart attack when she was 13. My mom never lost the weight of that grief. But this plastic bag is playful, light. Despite the lining of ashes, it shines as it shimmies and swirls in the sun, then drops, spirals to the sea, welcomed by gentle waves, buoying, until the mouth of the plastic bag breaks open, then a rush of ocean gush. The bag of ashes becomes a bag of waters, and that residue clinging to the inside of that glistening plastic bag washed away. The sack cleared, my mom healed, gone, her poverty, her depression, her lack, weightless now, unburdened and at peace. My mom's final plot, the sea. But I know that's not what happened. The cardboard box with the plastic bag, most likely grabbed by a worker's hand, shoved in a shiny black garbage bag, then hurled into a dumpster, later picked up by the filthy metal arms of a garbage truck and poured into its grimy bed. The box, holding the unclear plastic, crushed, hauled off with other thrown out shit, condemned to some Indiana landfill, abandoned beneath the weight of waste. What I carried to contain her ashes, ashes of a body that once carried me. How long will it take the plastic to break down? When will she be set free? I'll close with another poem that will be appearing in Alaska Quarterly Review. In some of my poems, I reference a place called Burnett, and that's a very small area out in the country outside of Terre Haute, Indiana, where I grew up. And this poem is about a woman who lived there. Mrs. Carson, for Lena May, 1922 to 2004. I imagine cooking grease must have caught fire and set the yellow kitchen curtains ablaze. breakfasts you made for your husband every morning for 65 years. Like clockwork, we'd hear you swing open the back door and bellow his name, Chief, Chief, until he quit tinkering in the tool shed, feeding the roosters, or tending the rhubarb beside the garden's white lattice fence. You never knew how we'd listen. Our family joke to mimic your loud howl. When you visited your kids out in California, we thought you'd never come back, until one morning we finally heard the voice we never knew we'd miss, Chief. You loved that man, but you were alone that morning. Mr. Carson in the nursing home with a broken hip. Your grandson left to run errands, and now you're gone. Every time I think of home, my mother, my sister, the trailer, your house is always there on the other side of our rusted chain link fence. I used to ride by on my bike, too shy to stop and chat, yet you always broke the rhythm of fanning yourself with a folded newspaper to wave at me from the porch swing where you sat summer afternoons in a faded floral house dress, your brown ankles swollen, your face always tired in that humid Midwest heat. Grieving for you now, a woman I barely know, I feel more alive than when I go about living. I wonder how you raised 8 kids in that house, how you dressed them all for church every week, what you looked like when you were young, how someone could live in the same place so long. How far away I am now, but haunted still, by the Burnett Church, the burnt-down Burnett Tavern, the cornfields, the cemetery, where my grandmother and her sisters, who played with you when you were a child, are buried now, folded into the hill, with stories I don't know that make me who I am. I imagine you looking out the kitchen window, shaking your head at that sad, rotting trailer we left, and Chief gone, probably never coming back, the garden overgrown. They found you in the blackened doorway. They said you looked beaten. I think of you dying that way, alone, your thick, slow legs and swollen feet hobbling through smoke, trying to make it out, the small house in flames, arms reaching toward the other side. Thank you.